Could you really get away with murder in the Middle Ages? There's no forensics, no CCTV, no DNA tests. Just one corpse and a lot of suspicious-looking villagers. So, did people actually get caught? Or could you just swing your sword and vanish into the woods? Let's find out. First, it depends where you were. In the Middle Ages, there were no organised police forces like today. So, you could technically get away with murder, right? Wrong. Instead, the responsibility for arresting someone depended heavily on the time, place, and social structure. Here's who might show up to arrest you. Let's say you murder someone in the village market in broad daylight, with lots of eyewitnesses. Well, these witnesses were legally required to arrest you. They would raise what's known as a hue and cry, literally shouting while chasing after you. Every able-bodied person in the vicinity was required to help with the arrest. And if your neighbours didn't help with the chase, they could be punished or fined themselves. In some communities, local villagers would be appointed to keep order. These constables or bailiffs were often appointed by the lord or elected by villagers. They would arrest you and take you to the local court. In early medieval England, the victim's family could seek what was known as blood vengeance, an eye for an eye, if you will. It wasn't exactly legal, but feuds and revenge killings were common, especially if no formal justice was delivered. If you happened to murder someone on the local lord's land, you would have to deal with the lord's retainers, his own private soldiers. They could detain you in the local dungeon or drag you before a feudal court. In many rural areas, this was often the only court people ever knew. Murder and other serious offences were considered felonies, and felonies were usually outside the jurisdiction of the local feudal courts. Once convicted, you would be handed over to the local sheriff, the king's top law enforcement officer in a county or shire. That's where the name sheriff comes from. He not only oversaw law and order, but collected taxes and assembled juries. You could be sentenced to execution by hanging. If you committed murder on the land of a powerful baron or noble, well, he would have the authority to execute you himself, without getting the sheriff involved. What if you committed murder on church grounds? What could happen to you then? Well, that depends. If you were not a member of the clergy, not only would you be arrested by the secular authorities, but you'd likely face excommunication. During the Middle Ages, this was often considered a fate worse than death. And if that wasn't bad enough, you could face public flogging or even execution. And if you were a holy man, you would be tried in an ecclesiastical court. The church rarely executed its own for murder, so you would face penance, defrocking, or be sent to a monastery for the rest of your life. What if you ran to a church after killing someone? If you managed to reach the altar without being arrested, you could claim sanctuary. This period usually lasted 40 days, during which time you could confess and agree to be banished. After the 40-day period, if you didn't surrender or leave, the church might hand you over to the local authorities anyway. Could the local authorities just barge in anyway and arrest you? Well, not really. Just ask the 4 knights that murdered Thomas Becket inside Canterbury Cathedral in 1170. They were excommunicated, and King Henry II himself was forced to do public penance. So, could you get away with murder in the Middle Ages? Medieval law was a tangled mess of local customs, church law, royal decrees, and feudal rules. You could be tried by a village elder, a bishop, or a drunk baron with a grudge. The short answer is yes, you absolutely could get away with it, and many people did. There was no police force, forensics, and no fingerprints. If no one saw you do it, or if witnesses didn't want to speak up, it was very easy to disappear or deny it. Many murders just went unsolved. If you were a noble, you often paid a small fine instead. A member of the clergy? Sure, you'd likely be excommunicated, but you wouldn't be hanged. If you were a peasant, and if somebody saw you, well, good luck getting away with it. And guess what? The same crime could get you a fine in one town and get you hanged in another. So, if you killed someone, who you killed and where mattered.